think we're gonna get started. As part of the International Services Department, big part of this process goes through the immigration process that goes after you graduate. So we're gonna start that presentation right now. And I will say right before we start talking about OPT and those work authorization options, there are some terms that I wanna have here just in case that I mention them in the future of the presentation. One of them is ISSS, that goes for my office, which is International Student and Scholar Services. DSO, which is Designated School Official, also known as your international advisor. So people like me, like the people in my department. Also OPT, which is the main topic today, and that stands for Optional Practical Training. Then we have STEM extension, which goes for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's the word STEM. EAD, that counts for Employment Authorization Document. USCIS, which is the US Citizenship and Immigration Services. And finally, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. So we're gonna get started. So the things that I'm gonna mention in this presentation are gonna be what is OPT, the types of OPT, your eligibility, the application process, the fees that are involved in this process, and also the employment requirements, reporting regulations, and what happens after OPT and grace period will be mentioned. Okay, so first of all, what is OPT? So optional practical training is a benefit for F1 visa students where they can engage in temporary training to gain practical experience directly related to their field of study. So basically, once you graduate, you get the opportunity to get experience in what you study. Use easier words, okay? We can move on. How many types of OPT are there? Well, there are actually three types of OPT. We have the pre-completion OPT, the post-completion OPT, and the STEM OPT extension. The pre-completion OPT is an authorization to work before the completion of your academic program. That means if you are still probably after your second or third semester in the university, you're still working on your degree, but probably you want to find opportunities off campus. Pre-completion OPT is one of these options. Post-completion OPT is the type of OPT that you apply on your last semester. So while you are on your last semester, you apply for post-completion OPT in order to start working right after you graduate. The STEM OPT extension, that is a process that goes while you are on OPT. So you first get approved for post-completion, and then while on post-completion OPT, before the expiration of it, if you are eligible and you are part of the STEM major list, you can work with an E-Verify company. So moving on. So starting with pre-completion OPT and how it affects your post-completion OPT, basically the maximum amount of time that you get granted for pre-completion OPT is 12 months. This is per educational level. It must be part-time, which is counted as half of what you request from the post-completion OPT. For example, if you request 6 months of pre-completion OPT, this counts as part-time, so 3 months of your post-completion OPT are taken. So normally post-completion is approved for 12 months. If you previously got approved for pre-completion OPT and you apply for, let's say you want to work in summer, so you apply for 3 months of pre-completion OPT. Once you are graduating and you apply for the post-completion OPT, you will deduct a month and a half if you requested 3 at the moment. Okay, we can go to the next slide. The duration of the post-completion OPT. The maximum amount that can be granted for post-completion OPT is 12 months per educational level. So if you graduate with an undergrad degree, that's 12 months of OPT. Master's, 12 months, same with doctoral degrees. 12 months of OPT is always the maximum that you can do for post-completion OPT. Moving on. So as part of the duration, it's important to understand what is being eligible for OPT. A student becomes eligible for another 12 months of OPT when student changes to a higher educational level. So if you graduate with a bachelor's and you do OPT, and then you get admitted to a master's, you'll be eligible again for OPT once you finish that master's. Same with master's and PhD. However, if you do OPT after you graduate for a master's and do a second master's, technically you already use the OPT available for that educational level. And it goes the same when you go under the educational level. So if you graduate with a master's and then you do a bachelor's, always counting, of course, that you do the master's and you do OPT, then when you graduate for the bachelor's, you won't get OPT. Okay, we can move on. A very important question to ask yourself at the moment that you are planning to apply for OPT is if you need a job to apply for OPT. And we get this question a lot. Basically, you do not need a job that is waiting for you to apply for OPT. The OPT applies to you, not to any employment that is waiting for you. So, student, of course, we recommend students to apply for jobs, go job interviews, do the whole process to get hired prior to the approval of your OPT. However, the main thing is that you don't start working until your OPT gets approved and the start date is reflected on the EAD card. But of course, you should feel free at the moment that you are in your last semester to apply for jobs. Okay, move on. So what are the employment requirements? The most essential thing about OPT is that the job that you find must be directly related to your area of study. Our office will require a detailed job description at the moment that you get hired in a job. So eventually you will be reporting that to us once you get a job. You can move forward. So the type of employments that are allowed, one of them is paid employment of at least 20 hours per week. Also, we can approve unpaid internship or volunteer jobs that have at least 20 hours per week. As part of post-completion OPT, you can also do self-employment. So if you create a business and that's basically your job, that is allowed as long as you provide the licenses and all the information that is required. However, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, self-employment is not eligible if then you want to do STEM extension. You can do it while on OPT, on post-completion, but when you decide to apply for the STEM extension, you won't be able to do it with a self-employment. And of course, it must be e-verified if you want to apply for STEM extension in the future. So again, post-completion OPT, it doesn't have to be an e-verified employer. However, if you want to use an employer to apply for STEM, you do need to be in an e-verified company. Okay, we can move forward. So when to apply for OPT? Per the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, students must apply for post-completion OPT as early as 90 days before and no later than 60 days after their completion of the program. So, of course, you are counting on 90 days before graduation and also the 60 days of grace period Of course, assuming that you are in the US during that time that you can apply for OPT. Okay, we can move forward. So what are the fees for OPT? So the USCIS filing fee for post-completion and also for STEM are $410. There is a fee that goes to our office for post-completion OPT that is $150. And if you're applying for STEM, it's $250. The application, you will actually submit the request to obtain the OPT I-20 through our student portal. And then you will schedule an appointment with one of our advisors to go over the I-765, which is the form that you complete in order to apply for OPT. So basically, it's a two-step process, one with our office to obtain the I-20 recommendation for OPT, and the second step, which is submitting the application to USCIS. And of course, it's important to mention that fees are subject to change. Even though it hasn't changed in a while, it might change in the future. Okay, moving on. So USCIS approval. If USCIS approves your application, they will issue an EAD card. Once you have your EAD card, wait for your start date on your card that becomes current, and then you may begin to work. So let's say that you get your EAD card on, just to give an example, on March, but the start date reflects May. You may wait until May to start working. Again, you are encouraged to apply for jobs and show that you were approved, but you are not able to work until that start date that you will decide. Make sure all information on your EAD card is correct, and present your EAD card to your employer within 3 days of employment. They will ask you for this document within the first week that you start working with them. Okay, moving on. So now you apply for OPT, you got approved, you got your EAD card, now you have a job offer. What is the step with our office? Simple. Basically, you will report your new employer through our international student portal. You will submit the hiring letter, you will provide the job posting or job description, and we will review the employment and will issue a new I-20 reflecting the name of this employer. This will be helpful because this will stop the 90 days of unemployment days that you get granted as part of OPT. So basically, you can be 90 days without working and they won't affect you. However, it's important to report employment at the moment you get it with our office within 10 to 15 days. That way we can report that you are now working and we can stop that 90-day clock. Moving on. Now I want to talk briefly about STEM extension. So STEM extension, you want to see it as a separate thing as post-completion OPT, because this is additional 24 months from the end date on your OPT. So you must have an eligible STEM degree, and your employer must be e-verified. As well, you must have a minimum of 20 hours per week in a paid position. So volunteer positions won't apply for STEM. Employment reporting every 6 months to our office. So 6, 12, and 18 months, as well as the final 24 months. So constantly you will be receiving notifications if you have to report any changes of employment every 6 months, basically. All right, moving on. The duration of the STEM, as mentioned before, is a maximum time of 24 months. And the STEM OPT can be used twice. Of course, counting on being on one educational level, like if you graduate from a master's, you do OPT, then you do STEM, then you get admitted into a PhD, you can do OPT, and then you can do STEM as well. And very important, you must apply for STEM OPT before your post-completion OPT expires. The window opens at the 90-day mark. So you basically have 90 days before your OPT expiration date to apply for OPT. You need to make sure that your application for STEM extension is received by USCIS before the expiration of your OPT. All right. All right, and for the process of STEM, it's very similar to post-completion OPT. You're just gonna add a few more documents, okay? So you will submit the OPT STEM application request through our portal, schedule another appointment with our international student advisors, and we'll go over the I-765 during the 90-day window of the expiration of your OPT. If you submitted before, we will have to hold your application until we hit the 90-day mark. USCIS must receive your STEM application before the post-completion end date. All right. So these additional documents for STEM extension will be the diploma. Hopefully by then you are already graduated. An employment verification letter, which basically is a letter that says that you're still working with that employer. We have a sample of affidavit letter that we want you to fill out as well, just to get the E-Verify number. And there is a form called the I-983 training plan. This is a form that you complete with your employer. So you complete like the first page and the rest is completed by your employer. All these documents will be part of the original package that you will process through our office. And then you'll be uploading these documents through USCIS to submit your application, of course. And I think that's it for my part. Now, I'm gonna pass it on to Brianna, and then we'll see some questions later.
I'm Brianna. I'm a senior career consultant in the University Career Center. I specifically liaison to business students, but can still see any major. If you want to go to the next slide, I'm just going to go over some resources that we have that you may find helpful. We have tons of resources on our website that are available to students and alumni for life. So even if you're 2 years, 20 years even, you can always come back to the Career Center website or appointments with us to figure out just career development in general. The three specific ones, or four rather, that I'm going to go over today are Career Shift, Inner Stride, and Going Global, and then Handshake. And go to the next slide, please. So the first one is Handshake, because this is definitely a platform to get super familiar with for many different reasons. You'll notice a bunch of different tabs here: jobs, events, employers, and then a whole bunch of stuff that you can upload or just navigate and kind of keep record of through the platform as well. You go to the next slide. So if you go to that jobs function, this is where you can look for on-campus and off-campus jobs. Now, if you're looking for on-campus type stuff and you use that on-campus filter, you will see a lot of work study positions, but there are non-work study positions as well. So definitely don't freak out if you're seeing more work study. Just know that you have to filter, use different keywords, or kind of just click into applications to get that designation for those non-work study positions. But for afterwards, if you click on the all filters that is circled here, and if you scroll all the way down when that window pops up, there is a filter that lets you click accepts OPT, CPT, they sponsor as far as like the company, or that doesn't require US work visa. So this is just super helpful, and it takes a lot of the guessing game out for the jobs that employers post. And the one thing about Handshake that's really cool too is these are employers who have come to us saying, we want UTSA students and alumni to apply to these positions. So if anything, it's a really good place to start here in Handshake. You can network in Handshake as well with some of those other tabs from the previous slide. But when it comes to finding the jobs, know that these filters do exist. If you move on. Now, I did want to make note of some of the companies that have noted that they accept CPT, OPT, or sponsorship. We have some big names on here like HEB, Dell, Visa, right? Those are ones that we pretty much all are aware of. But there are some other ones that have worked with us. These all have worked with us for quite a while, but I made sure to pull ones that have worked with us with this past year, so it's updated. But there are tons more employers that you can filter through on Handshake to see if they do sponsorship, if they do the OPT, or accept that. And if you go to career fairs, again, even as an alumni, you can attend career fairs. There's also that filter for that same thing too. So again, it takes the guessing game out of it. You're targeting employers that you know will actually consider you as an applicant. And we have the big names, but we also have smaller companies as well. So really good opportunities. And I just wanted to show you that we do have quite a few companies that are looking for international population. Okay, can go to the next slide, please. The next resource is CareerShift. So if you've ever used Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, really any job search engine, it works very similarly, but it includes all of those into one list. So it really takes a lot of time off of your job searching. So you'll find jobs from the companies, but you'll also find some postings from Indeed because that's just where the company houses them instead of their own website. So it really just brings it into a really nice list. You'll also be able to search companies. So like some of the companies from the previous slide, if you wanted more information or find more contacts that work there, you can search that up and you can save them and you can reach out to them. Some of them have their LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can connect with them. You can upload resumes or cover letters that you may have used to apply for some of these jobs as well. So it really, really does a lot of organization as well. And it's super, super useful just to get information from too if you're not too sure. But if we move to the next slide, I wanted to show you what it looks like at least so you can be familiar with it. So if we were to click on job search, this would pop up. So again, your standard type of job search engine things, location, city, state, zip code, put keywords. Again, you can put the company names, which is really cool. They recently added that remote and work from home in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. So that's also an option. And if you go to the next slide, the part I want to mainly focus on is this advanced search. And if you move forward, this filter was recently added. Probably in the last year and a half, I want to say is when it updated. So this is super helpful for visa as well. It filters that really, really good list, again, from multiple places to just make it easier for you to find these opportunities and these companies that are currently hiring and doing the visa sponsorships as well. So not only does this help cut down time when searching, but it also cuts down on trying to see if they sponsor. Okay, we can move forward. Now, InnerStride, which is personally my favorite. Going global is very, very similar, but I find InnerStride to be a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit nicer to look at too. But I will go over both for just because some people like going global a little bit more. But InnerStride allows you to search for jobs. You can set up job alerts just like any other job search engine. And whenever you do click on find or search jobs, the bottom right picture that says keywords, country, and then the US visa, there's a few different options that you can filter with. Works similar to any of those, but you at least know that whole list is open to anyone for OPT or visa stuff like that. The thing I want to highlight on this page is the US Visa Insights. So if you were to click on that, and you can move to the next slide, this will pop up. So this is only a handful of companies, but it's a huge long list that goes for pages and pages. But this is what it's going to look like, and there's search options and stuff on the left side. But you're able to go and see what companies have put in petitions And even more so, if you click that little view button, it breaks it down into specific job titles that those petitions were put in for. So let's say you're on Handshake, or you talk to an employer at the career fair, or just interested or just wanted to research a little more. You can figure out where that company really stands when it comes to visas. And then even more so, depending on the company, what types of positions that they have done that for. And one thing I want to mention too, that a lot of these big names like HEB, for example, Deloitte, that's on this slide, while HEB, right, we typically think it's a grocery store, but they hire for any kind of major. So yes, management, but they also do health, culinary. They do, actually, they're the #1 employer for mechanical engineering too. So when you're looking at these, don't just think the first initial jobs that we typically see when it comes to these brands. Definitely go click and view some of these petitions and job titles, because like Deloitte is a accounting firm, but they actually are a big recruiter for cybersecurity. So you never know what kind of jobs are going to come up in these companies, and this is just a really neat and clean way to figure that out for yourself as well. Okay, we can move on. Now, going global, like I said, it is very, very similar to InnerStride. It just looks a little bit different. These are the tabs that you'll find at the top when you log in. Again, these resources are free as a student and alumni. Same thing, it has jobs. It has the career guides. It kind of breaks it down by country, and it talks about like culture stuff as well, and things to expect, or just how it's different. So it's just kind of neat to read through those sometimes, but there's that jobs, excuse me, function. Now, when you use the jobs function, I do want to note that it includes any kind of international opportunities. So not all of the ones that will populate there are open to visas and stuff, because going global is also for our students who are US citizens or have permanent residency that are then wanting to go work in a different country. So just know when you're using jobs, it's not going to be all of them like InnerStride, but that's when you can move over to the H-1B visas. And if we move forward, this is what that will look like. So on the left side, we have, again, your very typical searching, right? So you can put in keywords if you're looking for a specific company, and of course, location as well. For the sake of this presentation, I just plugged in the keyword management and see what came up. And then this other picture is just a snapshot of a really long list that came up, but it will give you the job titles, the occupational area that title exists in. It will give you the company, the location, the salary, and then the year that was sponsored for that particular job title. So still really, really cool information to get. So like I said, play around with both InnerStride and Going Global to see which one you like to use best. Both have really useful information when you're trying to decide companies or just trying to see what's out there as far as job titles and industries as well. And one thing with InnerStride that I didn't mention, InnerStride also has webinars and recorded webinars for tips, very much like Rafael gave earlier, from other experts too. So just know that InnerStride also has that resource for you if you're ever just wanting more information about processes or just trying to get prepared while you're working with Rafael and his team too. It's, again, I'm a little biased against InnerStride, but it's super useful information, and Going Global gives you a little bit snippets of that part too. Okay, you can move forward. Okay, and then we have appointments with career consultants like myself. So all of these resources are on demand for you to use. You can go to our website and click into them right now and get some useful information from them. But you also have access to appointments with your career consultant. And a few of those items that we typically go over in appointments, resumes, cover letters. If you're looking to go into grad school, we also help with like statement purposes or letters of intents, of course, resumes, CVs, all that great stuff. Networking, whether it's building your Handshake profile or LinkedIn profile, salary negotiation, major or career exploration, if you're not too sure what you want to do as far as a major, or you love your major, but not sure what occupation you want to go into, we can have that conversation. Interview prep as well. And a lot of the times for interview prep, international students will also have conversations about how or when to navigate needing sponsorship with an employer, because sometimes it's a little bit scary, right? It's a little bit nerve-wracking to have to bring that up to an employer and possibly hear that, no, we don't. But we practice that in appointments. We talk about how you can use your skills to market yourself a little bit more as well. So that's all involved in an appointment. And then career guidance is kind of the catch-all. So really anything career development related, whether it's searching for these jobs and preparing for them and that whole process, we really anything career development. If it's out of our scope of practice, we will definitely get you in touch with a different office. Like there have been quite a handful that I have sent to Rafael and his team or that office when I no longer have that information. But we work very well with other departments on campus too. So whatever career topic you're looking for, always reach out to us. And if you move to the next slide, that's our main office information. So you can call us, email us. That's our website that you can go find these resources on. We also have a chat tool that we have student employees who are trained to answer your various questions. So if you're not too sure, you have multiple ways of reaching out to us to see how we can help you in this process when it comes to job searching, needing OPT, needing sponsorship, and just that whole journey that's quite a bit different from anyone else. So just know that we're here to support, and I just want to show you some of those few resources we have on demand 24/7 for y'all.
Is the architecture master considered a STEM program for the OPT?
The master's level, yes, it is a STEM degree. I do know that one for sure, but I mean, other majors, if we start asking about specific majors, I know a few, but that one, yes, because that one actually got approved recently within the last year and a half, probably.
If I understood correctly, it means as a STEM master, you can work 3 years, one from post-op and 2 from STEM OPT?
Yes, so you first get a year of OPT, and if it's a STEM major, by the end of that OPT, you apply for the STEM extension, which is 2 more years.
If I'm awarded a Boulder County scholarship, can I apply for OPT extension?
The answer is yes. Yeah, any scholarship, or if you're part of Boulder County program, they don't affect any application like OPT or STEM extension. That just strictly goes to your tuition.
For any assistantship, is necessary the OPT?
No. So if you become an F1 student, automatically at the moment that you are in the US, you enter as an F1, you are allowed to work on campus. So on-campus employment is just given to you as an F1 student. OPT, STEM extension, pre-completion OPT, all of them apply for off-campus opportunities, but you are allowed to work on campus, assuming the assistantship goes with a department at UTSA. You can work there for 20 hours per week is the maximum as a student on campus employment, and you don't need to apply for any work authorization. Basically, being an F1 allows you to do it.
What is a work study, and what is the difference between teacher assistantships?
Okay, I think I can just, and I don't know if Brianna wants to help me with this one, but as far as I know, work study is a position that is paid by the US government, as far as I know. So technically, it's not the department paying the student worker, it's the government. So it only applies for permanent residents or citizens of the US. So F1 students should not apply for work study positions. You can apply if it's work study recommended, because you still have a chance to probably, if you are very good at your job interview, they can still go with you on that path. But if it's required to get work study, it's a financial aid thing, so you won't be able to apply for those jobs.
Exactly correct. It's Federal Work Study Award, and that comes from filling out a FAFSA. So since you can't fill out a FAFSA, you don't obtain that Federal Work Study Award. And that's why I mentioned in Handshake. Don't freak out if you just see work study positions, because there are other on campus that you would still be eligible as an F1, as Rafael said.
What can I do after my OPT ends to petition for a work authorization?
It is a little bit tricky once your OPT ends, because you want to see it this way. You are authorized to work in the US until the end of your OPT. If your employer wants to apply for a work visa for you while you are on OPT, there are different work visas that they can apply. Of course, you will have to discuss that with the employer and their immigration department. However, you can work until the end of your OPT. I do know if they apply for H-1B visa, there are some dates that need to be made in order to do that application. But at the moment that they file and your application gets picked by USCIS, depending on the date, of course, there is an additional time that gets automatically added to your OPT. Just to give an example, because it's kind of tricky to make it general. Let's say that you graduate in the spring, which will give you a start of OPT of May, okay? So if you have a start date of OPT in May and you find an employer around August and you're working with them, and if it's a private company and they want to apply for your H-1B, there is a due date for applications for H-1B that is in April, as far as I know. I think it's April 15th. So if they apply in April and your OPT is expiring in May, but your application gets picked, basically there is something called cap extension that is automatically granted by USCIS that allows you to work not until the end of your OPT, but the OPT gets extended all the way until September 30th to allow USCIS time to work on your case and make a decision for your application, and you can still work during that time. Most of the time, the decision comes at the end of September. So most likely you get an extended OPT automatically until September 30th, because your H-1B, if it gets approved, basically will start on October 1st. And I know it's very tricky. This is way far ahead in the process. We do provide the CAPCA by 20 and assistance in some information about it, but of course, our expertise are more in non-immigrant visas and student visas. So information about work visas like TNs and things like that, if it's not through UTSA as an employer, basically if you're looking into other companies and things like that, it's always recommended to see an immigration lawyer, which we do have a kind of like a partnership. We have some immigration lawyers that assist us on specific things, and we can always recommend them.
What is USCIS and EAD?
The EAD card is the employment authorization document. So basically it's a card that you get once you get approved for OPT. There are other reasons why you can get an EAD card, but for F1 students, it will be based on OPT. And USCIS does any changes in immigration status. So that is the one that defines your immigration status. To apply for OPT, the process will go through them.
Can I work full-time while studying as a master's student?
Again, as an F1, you are allowed to work only part-time during the time that you're studying. Of course, there are other options besides OPT. If you're still working on your degree, there is something called CPT that I didn't mention in this presentation, just because it was about after you graduate. But during the time, if you are working on a master's and you complete two full-time semesters, basically you get eligibility to apply for what is called a CPT, or Curricular Practical Training. That is normally used for internship or job opportunities, but the CPT requires that your program has internship credit or equivalent. Equivalent can be if you are doing your dissertation hours and you're registering for dissertation credit, research credit, things like that. You can use that as long as the job is directly related to your research or you have an internship class. If you have that in your program, you might be eligible to apply for CPT. But of course, CPT, it's a very good conversation to always have like in appointments, because it kind of differ one program to the other, one student situation to the other. So always welcome to get your questions in an appointment or something like that. But in general terms, CPT is another way to work off campus while getting credit for the job that you do.
What tips can you provide international students to compete in the US labor force after graduation?
Well, I will say if I can recommend majors, always STEM will give you a very good amount of time to work to get a work visa. Definitely get experience. Experience is very important in the US. Even the best grades cannot guarantee a job. So always go to virtual fairs, not virtual fairs, but job fairs, things like that. Be in close relation with Brianna and her team, because they can help you through the entire process. They can help you with your resumes. They can help you with each step. Our office will help you with the immigration side of it, but they will know more about the job market, strategies, and things like that. She mentioned Interstride, and Interstride is very useful, especially for international students, because it was literally made by international students to basically fill that gap that you can find in other job engines, those job searching engines. Interstrike kind of tailors the whole process for international students and provides a lot of information.
So definitely echo what Rafael said. In Interstride, a lot of those webinars that I mentioned are best practices to stand out, to be competitive. So they have live versions, but they also have recorded. Another common thing that students do if they aren't able to secure an on-campus job or utilize their CPT, they do stuff like LinkedIn Learning videos, which you also have for free as a UTSA student. But if not, there are several other sites that same kind of thing. You can search up, like if you want to get more familiar with Excel on a higher level, a more advanced level, if you want to learn about Java, if you want to learn more, depending on whatever your field is going into, they have trainings and workshops that you can then put on your resume. You're getting more knowledge, you're showing initiative, it's professional development, and that counts as experience. And a lot of employers have told us to encourage students to do that, to market that leadership and initiative, and show the motivation to be in the field, especially because so many experiences have gotten canceled the past couple of years. So really just being participants in anything and everything that you are capable of doing, right? Because I know life happens, but employers have told us, aside from what Rafael said, just showing your motivation through professional development type stuff or other experiential learning.
I do want to add that just for the immigration side of it, a lot of students are very nervous on their last semester about, I need a job because I'm going to get kicked out of the country and things like that. That's not the case. You don't get kicked out of the country and things like that. There are grace periods. There is time to apply for OPT, even beyond the moment that you are approved for OPT. You get 90 days of unemployment. So if you want to see your last semester, I definitely recommend the most important thing is focus on your classes, because I mean, no OPT if you don't graduate. So that's always the most important thing. Focus on graduating. The process of OPT doesn't have to start from the beginning of the semester. You can take some time to apply for OPT. And, you have the entire semester to apply for jobs, and even choosing OPT right after graduation, you got 90 days on top of that. So we're looking at probably like 8 months to start working. So you got plenty of time. I know people get very nervous of finding jobs, but I just want to say that you will have plenty of time on your last semester to complete every step that you have to complete.
How often does UTSA host career fairs?
2 every semester. So we have a STEM career expo, and then we have an all majors. So you're welcome to go to both or just one, but we have both of them every semester.
What services does the Career Center have to help prepare international students for job interviews in the US?
So aside from meeting with the consultant and doing mock interviews or just general interview guidance, we also have a resource on our website, again, on demand 24/7, called Interview Stream. And that one allows you to record yourself actually answering interview questions. And we created a bank of questions, of common interview questions that we've heard from employers, we've heard from past students. So you can practice and create your own mock interviews at any time.
What is the best way to network with those companies that sponsor OPT?
Definitely at the career fairs.
Yeah, and I will say you can anticipate to those kind of things. As Brianna mentioned, those job searching engines, there are tabs there that you can see if employers and sponsor or normally will sponsor international students. So probably you can do your research before the job fair, so you can target which specifically jobs, most likely will sponsor a work visa in the future for you. Of course, just to make sure it's clear, the sponsorship doesn't come to OPT. OPT is something that you obtain for being an international student. Sponsorship will always mean any other work visa that goes beyond OPT.